All right, we're getting ready. I think Coach is on his way down. Just a reminder, Coach Holtman will be on right after this. He's going to.
Recording in progress.
Gary, you look pretty serious.
Hey, we'll go 10 or so questions here, one question each. We'll give a start with Bill Rabinowitz and Clay Hall on deck. Go ahead, Bill.
Hi, Ryan. Could you just kind of describe what Thayer Munford has meant to the program over his career and how well he's played this year?
Probably hard to do in this short of a time. He's a Block O recipient, Bill Willis Award winner, captain, and he's he really helped us this offseason, this preseason, with great leadership. When we had a young team that didn't have a lot of experience, he was a guy that decided to come back, made the move to guard, which has been, really good for him, just showing his versatility. And certainly the feedback we've got is that it's really improved his value because he can do multiple things. His approach has been unbelievable. He's been, durable, somebody we can count on. And certainly as a person, Ohio State is going to miss him when he leaves.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Clay Hall and Austin Ward on deck. Clay.
Hey, Ryan, just curious, what is the deadline, the drop dead kind of deadline on a game plan each week? And was this week's game plan tougher to arrive at than other teams?
I would say probably there is no drop dead. I would say in the Rutgers game, we called the play that we hadn't practiced all week, and it worked. It was just the right thing at the right time, and sometimes you add plays in late that you have banked reps at or you feel comfortable calling. Then there's other things that need a lot of work during the week. And so there's no real drop dead. However, typically what we want to do is we put our first and second down game plan in on Tuesday, third down red zone on Wednesday, and then we polish everything up on Thursday, walk through on Friday. And, we won't really add much, after probably Wednesday. Maybe we'll add a play on Thursday, but that's rare. We usually want to make sure that we get a bunch of reps and get efficient at it.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, next up is Austin Ward with Nathan Baird on deck. Austin.
Ryan, I think you mentioned briefly during the radio show that on some of the clips that you showed the offense that maybe two of them were play calls that you think maybe were mistakes on your end. What's the value from your perspective of that self-accountability in front of the team for a coach to say, hey, it's not all on you guys?
Oh, I think it's very important. And, there's always, no matter what game it is, probably, 3 to 5 calls that you wish you had back. If you're into the 10 to 15, it's usually a bad day. And so it's everybody across the board. And that's the one thing that, I think that our offense feels is that we're all in this thing together, whether it's the wide receivers, the quarterback, the running back, the tight ends, the offensive line, or the coaches, and that we have to solve it at the end of the day. And we're in this thing together. And I think that's important to see everybody in there together, working together, knowing that if I'm doing my part, then I'm accountable to the guy next to me. But all it takes is one guy to be off, and that includes the coaching. So we're all in this thing together. And I think that was the point of the meeting.
Next up, Nathan Baird with Dan Hope on deck. Nathan.
Hey, Ryan. DeJuan said yesterday that you guys used Jack Sawyer this week to kind of emulate George Karlaftis a little bit in practice. Just what about Jack already at this stage do you feel can do that, can kind of emulate that level of play, that kind of skill? And how did you feel like the tackles responded to that?
I think that they realize this is a big challenge. Both JT and Jack are some of the younger guys that when we go ones versus twos versus ones at the end of practice, allow us an opportunity to kind of fit the same body makeup that Karlaftis has. And so, the combination of speed and power and quickness is pretty comparable. But, I would say that Karlaftis is probably the biggest challenge that these guys have had all year, and probably one of the better defensive ends in the country. So that, they understand that going into the game, and they're going to have to be playing their best.
Next up is Dan Hope with Brendan Gulick on deck. Dan.
Hey, Ryan, you mentioned on the radio show that you guys would have taken the ball to start last week's game, so you'd have an extra possession with Steel Chambers. Would he have been in line to start at linebacker last week if he had been eligible to play in the first half? And is he in line to start this week?
I leave that up to Coach Washington, but he's playing at a starter level for sure. And, I'll leave it at that. And I think, he's playing as good as anybody else on our defense right now. Now he's got to continue that. And, we're still going to play depth, and a bunch of other guys are going to play. But I just think when you look at the production, it's been significant.
Brendan Gulick up and Tim May on deck. Brendan.
Hey, Ryan, during the show, it sounded like you had made a comment about guys were taking things in practice a little bit more seriously from the perspective that they wanted to be perfect on plays. They wanted to really nail certain plays. I'm curious if there's one or two guys that have stood out to you this year that you've seen really grow as they've taken practice more and more seriously throughout the course of the season.
I don't know if it's just one or two people. Honestly, I wish I could say that. I think it's just across the board. Guys understand how important it is, and it's something I noticed this week. Is there was just a little bit of an urgency to get it right, because when you start to get a bunch of games under your belt, you realize I got 2 or 3 times to get this right in practice. The timing, and when you play against good defenses and good offenses, you have to be just right. And if you're a little bit off, the margin for error is tiny. And so that's what preparation is all about. I think our guys are starting to learn that a little bit more, and we can keep growing in that area. But the better we are in that area, I think the better we'll perform on Saturday.
Next up is Tim May with Stephen Means on deck. Tim.
Yeah, Ryan, about this time of year, we keep hearing the term trap games this, trap games that. Do you believe in the term trap game? And with as much emphasis as you put on this game, even last week's game, was a struggle, but you warned everybody about it. Do you sense this could be a trap game for your team, or what have you sensed from them from a focus standpoint this week?
Well, yeah, I think we're much more rested than we were last week going into that game. Trap game. I think what it is just bringing it every week, and the ability to consistently bring it week in and week out after, having emotional games, big wins, different things that happen, and playing against conference opponents, playing against 9 conference opponents, playing against a non-conference with Oregon. That's 10 games where you can't lay an egg. You can't have a bad day. And so that's part of this process. And I think maybe coming off of last year, some guys who are coming into the program who didn't play much last year, now they're having to play a full season and not being able to take a week off. In the NFL, when you play 16, 17 weeks, you can have 3 or 4 bad weeks. You can't in college football. And when you're playing against this conference right now, that's very, very strong. That's the challenge. Can you bring it week in and week out? And so this is another good team. Again, whether it was Purdue or Nebraska last week or Penn State the week before, we've got to bring it, and it can't be about our opponents. So that has been brought up to them. We talked about that during the bye week. We knew what this run was going to be like, and here we are. And we have to find ways to win. And I do think we're more rested this week, and we've had a good focus. But now again, we got to bring it.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
Stephen means up with Joey Kaufman on deck. Stephen.
Ryan, obviously Travion has established himself as the lead back for you guys, but you said repeatedly that you'd like to see some other guys get involved there with Master and Mind being healthy. But is Evan Pryor in the mix at all to possibly be that second guy for you guys?
I don't know if I'm about the second guy right now, but he certainly is in the mix to get in the game. And he's growing every day. He's getting better. He's practicing better. And he's got a very, very bright future here. We think he can be a really good player. Been very impressed with things we've seen. So he's got to be ready to play.
All right, next up, our last two, Joey Kaufman with Steve Hellwagon on deck. Joey.
Ryan, how has Garrett looked in practice this week after coming off being out last week?
He's had a good week of practice.
Does he look like he's in a rust or?
He's had a good week of practice, yeah. And we'll see how he does today.
All right, and we'll wrap it up with Steve Hellwagon.
Hey, Coach, I want to ask you about your defensive tackles. Haskell, Garrett, a little bit limited here in recent weeks. And Tyleik Williams, seemed like we have not seen a whole lot out of him in recent weeks either after he kind of flashed for a few weeks there. Those two guys in particular, what's the prognosis looking like for them?
Yeah, we're expecting to have them. And they've both had different things along the way the last couple of weeks that have kind of held them back a little bit, but we're expecting them to play this week.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think Coach Holtman's coming on right after this, and just wanted to wish him good luck against Niagara, and had a great win against Akron. They had a great crowd, so wish him luck again in his next game.